Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of The La Project with me, Han Royani, and my co-host
BJ. How you doing?
Before we start, I just want to ask Jay, have you been up to anything interesting recently?
Nah, but I apologize because we had to cancel last week's
No
shooting.
worries,
Yeah. But you know,
what did you have?
karma got me good, I guess. I was talking about the COVID vaccine in the previous episode.
Yeah, and then you got COVID last week.
I got COVID like 3 days later. Like,
That's just poetic justice.
yeah, dude, karma's a bitch, but it happens, and thankfully I'm doing better now. I still can't taste anything though. I can't taste shit.
Oh, really?
I can't taste shit. I can't smell shit. It's been a week.
Your
It's
karma lah.
It's
Karma.
depressing, dude. Yeah, I love to eat. I love to eat, dude. And dude, this sucks.
That's what you get for talking smack about the COVID
About the vaccine, not about the COVID, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it was like some kind of man-made virus or anything. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I was talking about the vaccine.
I've been up to recently, Jay.
Yeah.
I've been up to.
How your show's been?
Yeah, I did a few like stand-up shows.
Yeah.
Actually, last week I did a competition called Short and Sweet at KLPAC.
Nice. How was it?
Okay, before I get into it, I gotta tell you that I just started stand-up 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And then I joined this competition and I got Best Newcomer.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, how's that though?
Oh, it was very...
How long was your set?
It was just 5 minutes.
Okay,
5
that's
minutes.
still
Yeah, not bad.
quite a bit, dude.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes is
5
not.
minutes is a long time, especially
It's
when...
not easy to come up with like 5 minutes of raw material, dude.
Yeah,
You know?
Imagine like you talk to these people and then like
Yeah.
if your joke doesn't land, it's just quiet.
I would imagine.
It
Yeah.
was awkward.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to have a good show and one thing to have a terrible show, and
Yeah.
I think I had both.
Well,
I had
that's
both.
what you get when you jump off the deep end, right?
Yeah.
It's fine.
But it
It's
was
fine.
a fun experience. I would
Cool.
definitely do it again.
Yeah,
So, okay, without further ado, I think we'll get into some
Starting
of
with the show.
the monologue for this week. In case you've been living under a rock, Israel has written headlines, and not necessarily pleasant ones. A year on from October 7th, Palestinians and Gazans are still under occupation, with new videos showing the aftermath on another deadly strike on another Gaza hospital. With the war in the Middle East escalating, nearly 1 million people have fled from Lebanon to Syria, with Israel facing resistance from Gaza, Lebanon and Iran. In a video where he was addressing Lebanese people, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, called on them to free your country of Hezbollah or expect destruction and suffering, similar to what we see in Gaza. And that was what Benjamin Netanyahu mentioned.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, but it's not just like the whole occupation of Gaza is still happening a year on, no ceasefire, right?
Yeah.
And then they recently attacked Lebanon.
Yeah.
Well, they claim they attacked Hezbollah in Lebanon,
Yeah, but it was...
but lots of civilians also got caught in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
And the
we
pager
talked about the
things.
pagers, yeah.
And
now
they're
they have-
also going after the Houthis, right?
Yes.
In Yemen.
Yes.
And now there's a United States bombing run that just happened, I think like a couple of days ago in Syria
Oh, okay.
as well.
Okay.
So
I
like,
didn't know that.
dude, all is a show, dude.
Yeah.
It's a show, dude.
Sometimes
Like,
I wonder like how do we
but
stay positive?
Egypt's not doing anything. It's really weird. Egypt's just like
Egypt is not doing it.
biding their time.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think they have affiliates lah, I think. From
Yeah,
with
must be
Israel,
lah.
yeah.
Like same as to why Saudi is sitting on their hands as well. You know, but Iran attacked the Israelis, right?
Iran did
they
attack.
sent
They
like
attacked
rockets
each
to
other,
the
yeah.
northern Israel.
Yeah.
Like, I know, man. Seems like it's escalating. The
Yeah,
situation is
but
escalating. It's getting worse.
Yes. And not just in the Middle East, but also in Russia and
Yeah,
Ukraine. And in some parts of African countries, people are still going under like starvation and human trafficking and stuff like that. So it's terrible.
You wanna know a weird thing about this whole thing?
What?
The US is actually sending monetary aid to Lebanon. You know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? It's like they give billions to Israel and then they give money to Lebanon. Why?
They're giving $157 million US of
Why?
monetary aid. I don't know. You gotta ask your buddy Joe. He's the one who approved it.
Joe Mama?
Joe Biden.
Okay.
Yeah. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, apparently, they just announced it. A couple of days ago, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
Yeah, they're sending $157 million to Lebanon.
I have no idea why when they
Then you would think that, you save a lot more money if you just, tell them not to fire.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's what they've been telling Israelis all this time.
Yeah.
Anyway, in other news around the world, Didi was locked up and Hurricane Milton is ravaging the US right now.
Yeah. Helene too.
Sorry?
Helene,
yes.
Yeah.
So they're going through two major hurricanes.
Yeah, and apparently there's a third one supposed to come. Hit Florida first, apparently.
I think so. I think was that Milton?
No, after Milton.
After Milton.
Yeah, because it was Helene
I'm
first,
not sure.
and then Milton, and then it was supposed to be, I think another one or another two that was supposed to make landfall and hit Florida first.
Oh.
Apparently lah. But
okay.
I mean, it's never been this severe, but it's always been hurricane season this time of the year.
Yeah, but I feel like as the years
US
progress, and not just in the US, other countries are experiencing climate change levels of natural disasters. You know what I mean? Like hurricanes or flooding. And do you want to know something? Like this is not related to climate change,
Right.
say. But I don't know if a few years ago there was this event. It was done by Coldplay, and they cleaned like the Klang River
Oh, in Malaysia?
in Malaysia.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay.
Coldplay?
And Coldplay, yeah, one of the partners for the project.
Oh,
lah.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And in case you didn't know,
When they came to perform here?
yeah. Wait,
The-
no. Before they came to perform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And in case you didn't know, Jay, Malaysia generates up to 38,600 tons of solid waste every day.
Yeah,
Every day.
dude. I'm not surprised by that. My grandma probably is responsible for
Is a
another two, 3
contributor.
tons of those of those 69,000 tons.
Anyway, speaking about Malaysia's solid waste, with us today we have a guest.
Yep, we do. From Greenpeace Malaysia.
Yes, and she's the zero waste campaigner. Let's welcome to the show, Yan.
Hello, nice
Hi,
to
Yan.
be
What's
here. I'm Dunsin, so everybody's call me Yan. It's my nickname. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
All right, thank you for having us. Would you mind telling us a bit of your background and especially how you got into Greenpeace?
Yep, definitely. So I just started with Greenpeace this year. So before that, I actually studied law. So I did all the process, like graduated with a law degree, undergo the pupillage, chambering for 9 months, get
Right.
called to the bar. So I just got called to the bar this year, March. So after that, I've been searching for, a higher sense of purpose instead of just working in the corporate commercial field. So it's like, I was really so big on environmental issues, climate change issues back when I was studying. So I'm like, okay, let's see what I can do further. So, and then there's this opening in Greenpeace that just, it feels like fate.
Right.
So I saw their job posting ad. So I was like, okay, let's try this out.
Right.
And I applied, gone through the interview, and now I'm here.
Right.
What made you pick Greenpeace?
So, what made me apply Greenpeace?
Yeah.
So, you can see that Greenpeace actually have a lot of very interesting and highly creative projects and operation against the biggest polluters in the world. So they do highlight that, climate justice, that's for everybody, not just, the affected communities.
Right.
But of course, we need the affected communities, so that, we have legal standing and all,
Right.
when we want to help them.
Yep.
Yes, definitely. So it's one of the reasons why I joined Greenpeace.
Okay.
Right. Have you always been passionate about the environment?
Yes. So you have like small lifestyle changes at home,
Right.
thinking about like where does your waste go and how can you contribute towards, making the earth a better place to live in? Because you see all the pollution happening around every day.
Right.
Maybe, just in your neighborhood, your neighbors could be burning their rubbish, and that to contribute,
Yep.
to climate change.
Right.
It's small actions like this that you see every day in your life that makes you think, hey, what can I do better?
Right.
Yeah, so that's why I joined Greenpeace as
Right.
well, and why I want to focus on environmental issues.
Nice.
It's very, very noble.
Yeah.
And what since you've joined Greenpeace, what sort of projects have you done?
Okay.
What do you do in Greenpeace?
Greenpeace. So my role is a zero waste campaigner. So right now we're looking at plastic pollution because it's a prime time for Malaysia to look at this issue, especially, Malaysia imports all the plastic waste from other countries like, Japan, US,
China.
UK,
Yep.
and Canada.
Right.
China, not so, but we do get a lot of plastic waste coming into our country after China has banned it
Right.
back in 2018, 2019.
Right.
Yeah, so the developed countries, they tell their people, hey, let's do recycling and all. Then, the people, they do their part. They recycle thinking that their trash is being properly processed. But what they don't know is there's this importation and exportation of this plastic waste into other developing countries.
Right.
So all the rubbish now gets sent to Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Malaysia.
In what form though? Like in the form of rubbish or in the form of like recycled?
So we get like container loads of, it would probably be plastic packaging.
Okay.
Most of the times it's plastic
like those single-use
packaging.
plastics.
Yes,
Right.
also that.
Those have been recycled from.
It's not, it hasn't been processed.
Right.
So just imagine, you consume maybe potato chips.
Right.
So we get that plastic packaging, right?
Right, yeah.
So people would clean them and send them to, recycling facilities.
Okay.
So we get a lot of all these packaging
Okay.
coming in container as well into our pots. So sometimes, there is like a legal way of coming in and illegal way of coming in.
Right.
Yeah, so from what we know from the legal one, once we have done like crackdown and spot checks, we do actually go to the ground and see like where does all this plastic waste comes from.
Right.
And from the packaging, from the label, you can see like this different wording and all, you can see like it's made in somewhere else,
Right,
not
right.
Malaysia.
Right.
So that's not our trash.
Right,
It's
right.
trash coming from other people's
And
people's
it's just
country.
being dumped here and we are made to deal with the
Yeah.
trash.
So actually, why are we receiving all this trash?
Yes,
Because the
why?
recycling facilities here, they have the AP license. So they're
Oh,
saying
okay.
we want like a circular way of, because we have limited resources, right?
Right.
So they are thinking about, okay, let's have a circular economy. So if I can process and, extract the raw material from
Right.
it, I can do it here. But most of the time, it's not done. It might not be done properly because all of this happened behind closed doors.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's always corruption involved at this
It
scale.
could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
So Yan, what inspired you to focus on plastic pollution and environmental advocacy?
Okay. Why environmental advocacy? Because a lot of vulnerable people, they're not really brave enough to stand up against all the big producer and polluters. So that's why it's important for me, to serve all these people by joining like NGO like Greenpeace that
Right.
have operation against all these big polluters. We expose them and, tell the truth to the people essentially. Yeah. So why plastic? Because Malaysia locally, we produce a lot of plastic waste. But on top of that, we get all the plastic imports from other
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah.
So we are not even capable to deal with our own plastic waste in a safe and reliable manner already. And on top of that, we still have to deal with other people's rubbish.
Yeah, why did we accept all these rubbish? Is it because like we're gonna use them as part of our recycling?
Or is the government
Yeah.
getting paid
Yeah.
by the other governments to handle the trash? Is that what it is?
So there is this, it's all under what we call the Basel Convention.
Okay.
So actually, countries, they might have like agreement.
Okay.
So there will be exporting countries and there will be importing
Importing countries,
countries. So prior to the importing countries receiving all this plastic waste, right? They have like a kind of like a consent approval processes that they have to go through.
Right.
So basically, it's all this formality and documentation.
Yeah.
So one, the exporting country have, properly documented their waste and submitted all of this document for our country's approval, they could start, start the process of exporting into our countries. So we get like container loads of plastic waste sometimes, practically every day, coming
Wow.
into our port. it's not just one, two, it's like thousands of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And sometimes, there are like good players and bad players.
Yeah.
So the bad ones, they would mix something else inside. So when they declare that this is plastic waste, there might be some other mixed materials in there. Right.
Non-plastic waste.
Yes,
yeah.
because sometimes it's impossible for, the custom authorities to go through
Every
every single
container, yeah.
containers.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes.
Wow.
All right. So from your experience working with Greenpeace, can you explain the most pressing issues related to plastic waste that you have encountered?
Because there is an overproduction of plastics, and at the consumer side, there is an overconsumption as well,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So think
Yeah.
about it. When you step into the supermarket, you see plastics everywhere
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Your vegetables, they are pre-packed in plastics packaging, right?
Yeah.
Even like your potato chips, and
Yeah.
it could be, the sauces and all that. It's all packaged in multi-layer packaging. That those contains plastic materials as well.
All right. So
Yeah.
you think we should change our way of packaging, especially like when it comes to our products or food and stuff like that? Because like as you mentioned, you walk into a supermarket, everything is like packaged in plastic.
Yeah.
And the other options that we have, the environmentally friendly ones, are a lot more expensive. So how do
A
we
lot more, yeah.
How do we deal with that?
Okay. So a lot of people are talking about, like eco-friendly products packaging or maybe, biodegradable
Yeah.
plastics and all that.
Recycled materials. Yeah.
Yeah, but in reality, all those new plastics, they do also contain parts of plastics in it. So it's still plastics in the end. It's not really
Okay.
our solution out of it. So what Greenpeace is advocating for is the refill reuse system. So kind of like you bring your own container,
Yep.
right? And then you get what you want. And then after that you timbang it. Then they will
Right.
charge you by the weight.
Right. Right.
Because we have all these, durable containers at home that, we could just wash and reuse it every single time. So this is one of the way that we could, start saying no to plastics,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So before that, as consumers, we could start, making small lifestyle changes, like saying no to single-use plastics.
Right.
Bring our own recycle bags. When we buy something, be a little bit more conscious on what
Yeah.
you're consuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned before the show that there's an event called INC-5 and also the global
Plastics
Global
Treaty.
Plastics Treaty.
Okay, before I get into that, how do you assess the effectiveness of our current policies and regulations that surrounds plastic use and waste management?
Okay.
How effective has it been so far?
How effective? Okay, so let's talk about the national policies and frameworks in the countries. So definitely the country, they have set, net zero targets for, of course, they want to try to achieve it. So they have all these roadmaps and policies that they have come up with. For example, like, the 12 Malaysian plan. And then the Malaysia Plastics Sustainability Roadmap 2021-2030.
Yeah.
Malaysia's roadmap towards zero single-use plastics 2018-2030. It's such a mouthful. It's so long. And then we also have National Marine Litter Policy and Action Plan 2021-2030. So it's quite a few of these
But
roadmaps and policies,
effective,
right?
How effective
So-
have they been?
People might think it's good to have all this, but in reality, there is a lack of implementation and enforcement.
Enforcement.
Yes, let's talk about in Kuala Lumpur, we have, the plastic straw ban.
Okay.
But then, in reality, when you go to every single kopitiam, mamak, or when you buy a drink
They're still
somewhere
using
else,
plastic
they
straws.
still give you that plastic straw.
But to be fair, this is my personal issue with this.
Okay.
About this plastic straws.
Okay.
About this, say no to plastic straw. When it first began, people were using paper straws though. Like, I mean, come on. We have gone through thousands of years of human evolution,
Okay.
and we're going to use paper straws? Use paper as straws?
You don't like saving the turtles?
No, I'm just saying you can't use paper straws, dude. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
Paper
okay.
and liquid don't work.
So what's the solution then? If
I
you
know
can't
those
use-
bamboo straws work, those metal straws work. Yeah, okay, they require a bit more effort. But I found like an iced coffee, like a really good iced coffee, is enhanced when you use like a chilled metal straw. This is so
Okay.
bougie of me, I know. But coffee is one of the things I don't like to compromise with in my life.
Okay.
And a good iced coffee with a good chilled metal straw. Holy shit, man.
Perfect.
Ooh. Ooh. I love it. Like, but I mean, I think like one of the issues with that, you can't use paper straws, dude. Like I know Coffee Bean,
Yeah.
they use this some kind of
It's like a jelly straw. It's hardened.
it's
right?
hardened jelly. Yeah. So that sort of works. I mean, it doesn't melt as you're drinking.
It doesn't last long lah, but
But it doesn't melt when you're
Yeah.
drinking it.
Yeah,
you know. So yeah, like
okay.
metal straws, bamboo
Alright.
straws.
Speaking about some of our solutions on how we try to deal with this,
Yeah.
what are some of the most innovative solutions that you've seen or been involved with to reduce plastic consumption?
Okay, so let's look at in the Malaysia landscape. For
Okay.
starters, we have these small enterprises that focuses on the zero waste lifestyle and concept. So they have this: you bring your own container,
Yep.
you just get what you want, refill with it, then you weigh it, then they will charge you accordingly. So for starters, this is a really good entry point,
Yep.
towards saying no to single-use plastics. And think about it, if we're doing it at scale, if all the big corporations are doing that, there's so much lesser plastics that
Yep.
we're using, right?
Yep.
Because we have really good durable containers at home already. Probably glass one as well, like from
Yep.
when you buy jams and all, you can just wash it and reuse it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So in Greenpeace, we do really push forward the idea of, reuse, refill system, like this, businesses like this. For starters, retailers, okay, they still want to be in the business, right? But sometimes you just couldn't escape because plastics is everywhere and it's really cheap
Yep.
to use it. So in Taiwan, how bubble tea is really a big
Yep.
thing
Yep.
there. Like they consume milk tea like it's their religion.
Yeah.
So in Taiwan, they had pilot programs on cup deposit system.
Okay.
So they
How does that
would-
work?
Okay, so when you go to the shop, right?
Okay.
They will have already all these good durables, good quality plastic cups in stores. They probably have like third-party contractors
Right.
sourcing all this out. So when the consumer is there, they will buy a milk tea.
All right.
So the store will then charge them the price of the milk tea. On top of that, maybe some amount of of
For the
using
container
that
as well.
cup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you finish that, you clean it at home, then they will have maybe multiple collection points and drop-off points for you to return this
And you get your money
deposit
back.
cup.
You get your deposit
yeah, and
back.
then you get your deposit back
Wow.
after that.
Okay. That's
So,
interesting.
Yeah,
That's actually quite
it's
interesting.
something we can try out because other countries have been doing it already.
Yeah.
All right. So from what you've seen, right, what role do big corporations have, or what role do they play in addressing plastic waste, and how can they be held accountable?
Okay, definitely. Big corporations, they always just, think about making profits, right? Sometimes really they overlook the community and
That's
how
late.
all these plastics are coming back to us, not just in the ocean, right? Because it's quite dire, especially in coastal communities. We get all this plastic waste washing up on the shore
Yep.
every single day. We try to do cleanup, but cleanup is only post-consumer side,
Right.
right? The plastic waste will still come back even though we clean that up on that day.
Yeah.
So big corporations, they do really have to take up the responsibility to look at how they produce their plastics, right? Because we have essentially so many single-use plastics in the market now, and we don't really need that.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you look at our grandparents, maybe even great-grandparents kind of days, right? They don't rely on plastic
yeah.
use, right? So we should also, start resorting back, looking at traditional way, indigenous way people living, right?
Right.
Okay.
So big corporations, they won't do much unless there are like significant laws, imposing mandating them to do such to make a change. So in Malaysia, all these policies and roadmaps essentially only talks about post-consumer solutions like recycling. But it doesn't talk about, production side.
Yeah.
So governments really do have to start looking at upstream solutions. So definitely direct the laws towards, stricter policies on all these big corporations. So then they will make a change.
Right.
It's good that some corporation has, starting to realize that it's all coming back to them in the end. But, the R&D team do really have to do something. So that's why the refill and reuse, it's one of the best solutions that they could adopt as well at scale because they have the funds to start doing this.
Yes.
They could lead the way. And,
Okay.
yeah.
You mentioned something about these big companies, all they care about is profit, and sometimes they just jump on the trend because it's because
It's the green wave.
It's the green way to do it.
Yeah.
But how do we make these big corporations accountable for their actions? Let's say they've polluted, they have, let's say, released like 20,000 tons of plastic or whatever. Then how do we make them accountable for their actions? Or maybe like they don't, not just plastic, but chemical waste. Or, how do we make these companies accountable?
Okay, so in Greenpeace, we talk about, extended producer responsibility. In short, it's called EPR. So for example, like plastics. So big corporation like, the big names, they would have to start looking at the entire life cycle of their product, right? From, from the extraction of the fossil fuel into making your plastics. And then when it goes down to the supply chain, towards the consumer, and then post-consumer, what it's going to do, it's going to become our waste. So they have to responsible along the way.
Yeah, like
So it's important that we have an EPR law that addresses all these kind of things. And also, big corporations have to start to realize that, hey, the lawmakers are going to make laws targeted at you guys. So it's time to really step up. So we have an international agreement and negotiation coming up at the end of November. So, it has been ongoing for quite some time now. So at the end of November, it's going to be the 5th round and hopefully the last round. So what's going to happen is that essentially all countries' representatives are going to be in Busan, Korea, to come to their consensus and common ground to, have stricter laws and policies against the producer. So what we are demanding for is, addressing all the problematic chemicals that goes into making plastics and also, reducing the production at its source. Yeah, we call it a global plastics treaty.
yes.
Yeah, so as the title goes, it addresses the plastics pollution.
Yeah,
When is this again?
Like from what I understand, this like the global plastics treaty, especially when you're referring to the upstream, more upstream producers and the extraction. From what I understand, that is when the most pollutants are released at the early life cycle of the creation of plastics. Am I right?
Yes, definitely. So, plastics are fossil fuel. Not a lot of people know that, sadly. Okay. Other than fossil fuel, that's about like as many as 13,000 different types of chemicals that goes into making your everyday plastics products. Unfortunately, a majority of these 13,000 type of chemicals, right, are unregulated. So it could be hazardous to the human health. So it's problematic. So even though we are talking about recycling, in Greenpeace, we try to tell people that recycling is not the solution. It's only a small part of solving this pollution. Recycling essentially, it's recycling all the harmful chemicals that goes into making your plastics. We're just recycling those harmful chemicals, right? So everything in the end comes back to us. It will harm us.
Yeah.
Not sure if you heard of microplastics.
Yes.
So studies, has been shown and confirmed that microplastics has been found in placenta. So can you imagine that? A mother is pregnant with her baby. And the baby gets nutrients from the placenta. And in the meantime, they have microplastics going into the baby as well.
Yeah.
So it's like baby plastics now everywhere. Yeah, and it has been found in human stool as well. So confirm that microplastics has been found in human body.
And I think you can find microplastics in a lot of like sea creatures also, like fish and stuff like that, because they sort of, knowingly or not, they sort of inhaled or take in this microplastic. So actually the food that we eat can also consume some microplastics.
Like the meat.
Yeah, like the meat, like the fish and stuff like that.
Yes.
Might have to go vegan, dude.
Yes, especially seafood.
You going vegan, sorry.
Yeah, because we have, not just the plastic waste we produce now, but we do have also legacy plastic waste on the ocean. And essentially all plastic items, they will degrade over time. And it will become smaller pieces like microplastics and nanoplastics. So it's very problematic because we have in the marine, the fishes, it could be your oysters and things like that could be thinking it's food. Then they will eat it. Then it ends up in our food chain. Right. It's not just that on the sea, on land as well, because we have landfills everywhere. Right. So, there's leachate. So there is always a risk of microplastics.
So when you mentioned about the Global Plastic Treaty, right? Do they already have a plan that they want to execute, or will they discuss as a world treaty organization later on? Will they discuss like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, or do they already have a plan?
Like what step is, because the INC-5 is the actual meeting, right?
Yes.
So is it at the conclusion of this INC-5? If they all agree, is that when they sign the treaty, or is there not a framework for the treaty yet? Like where is that going?
Okay. So what goes into INC-5, because now it's already close to the end. So previously there had been, negotiation and, proposals, suggestions of what goes into making the treaty text. So a lot of the times it goes into, drafting what word should we put that in. Those are, the early phases. And they have already identified what to put in, because we have a scientist coalition that, expose the truth of plastics as well, that's saying, hey, we have all these harmful chemicals and all. So that one of the agenda is also, looking at all the harmful chemicals that goes into making our plastics. Yeah. So one of the viable solution is definitely looking at upstream solutions. So they have already identified what to put in, what should we look at, and it's just, up to the countries, all the different countries, like how strong of a position they want it to be. Because unfortunately, we do have quite a few numbers of petrochemical states. For example, like Malaysia.
And Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so it could be probably all these countries with influence from the petrochemical industry. They could want a weaker stance on the Global Plastics Treaty. But we do also have, some high ambitious country like the US and UK. They want, a stronger treaty so that, it protects everybody. So it looks at, realistic solution instead of, hey, we're doing this, we want this in the treaty, let's look at this and all. And they really do it for, because the high achieving countries, they really want, really ambitious treaty. So hopefully, the majority of all these countries get to, assert some influence on, petrochemical states, country like ours, to really have a strong position on this.
Like, what are some of the countries that are most opposed to having a strong treaty?
So for one, Malaysia is one of them.
They are opposed?
They have quite a few numbers, but let's talk about Malaysia.
Okay.
Because, a lot of our economy and GDP comes from petrochemical industry.
Of course.
So we also do have, petrochemical representatives sitting in the delegates that goes to,
Like from the petrochemical companies, like Shell, ExxonMobil.
It could be, people from
Petronas.
Yeah. It could be. So they, occupy a space in our delegation seats because the delegation pass are limited.
Yep.
Not everybody gets to go to be involved in all these big talks at the international level.
Yeah.
So just to give you a little bit context, at the previous INC-4, the numbers of petrochemical representatives outnumbers the other country delegates. So if they do assert such influence on the country delegates, they want to keep business as usual. They
Yeah,
want
of
to
course.
keep producing.
Regulations at the
Yes.
least amount of
Yes.
possible. Yeah.
So if we let these people do all these things, down the line, it's the community, it's the people, the marine life, ecosystem, biodiversity, it's going to be at loss.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely that's why Greenpeace is always telling the public, hey, this pollution, it's real, it's happening. It's
Right.
big. We have to really, look at it, not just, hey, the government is doing all such thing, then it will solve our problem. But no, so it's also important that we have to educate ourselves, like what's the global news, what's going on.
Right.
Because pollution is happening already at our backyard, right? If we let, the bigger players assert such authorities on our government, how will the people win?
Okay, so that is from a Malaysia standpoint, right? So, what about the other possible superpowers? Like, what does China or Russia say? Like, where are their stands as it pertains to this global plastics treaty?
It's hard because it's also quite political, They
Yeah,
have
of course,
trades agreements and all that.
Yeah.
So we have something called the Bridge to Busan Coalition.
Okay.
So in this coalition, they are like countries that want, like an ambitious global plastics treaty.
Okay.
So definitely some of these big countries, have to assert some of their influence and political power over like petrochemical countries, right?
Okay.
Because it's just we're not just talking about plastics from the petrochemical industry, it's also, supplier down the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it could be because China has banned, the plastics import from other countries because they might not be able to properly manage their own plastic
Yeah, because they have
waste
like 2
on
billion people.
their
Yeah.
own.
Yeah. To manage.
Yes.
Yeah.
They could have, realized, hey, it's really it's so out of control.
Yeah.
We have to start doing this and that. But then when we talk about international treaty, sometimes if it's really strict, right, it leaves very little leeway for the countries,
Makes it very expensive for these small countries
yes,
as well.
definitely,
Yeah.
because it all goes back to also funding.
Yeah.
Whether they have the funding to do, real solution and change, systematic change
Yeah.
down the line.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like more than funding. One issue that I find is the execution of it. Because like for China, for example, right? China has a very big initiative towards electric vehicles,
Yeah.
right? Since we're on the topic of the environment. But to power these electric vehicles, you need electricity, right?
Yes.
And the main
Material.
source fuel that is powering most of China is coal.
Yep.
So and that is a massive polluter, as we all know. So that's what I'm wondering, like how far can the execution go? Because is it really going to matter if the UK, Norway, Sweden have all these countries with, like, if you look at the Scandinavian countries, they have like 10, 15 million people or less in terms of their population, right? That doesn't compete with India or China that have more than 1 billion, more than 2 billion.
See, these small countries
Yeah.
Like
they-
Asia has like 70% of the world's population
Yes.
living in Asia. Think about that. And it doesn't really move the needle if we can't get the Asian countries on board.
Yeah,
You know?
I know what you mean. So let's say all these small countries, we decide, okay, we should
Population-wise, at least.
okay, we should do this, we should do that. But it wouldn't matter if some of the bigger countries, they're like, F these people.
Yeah.
F these countries.
Yeah.
So like, how do you deal with that?
Like, of course, we can keep saying, okay, we're not gonna take your trash anymore. We're not gonna take your waste anymore. But they can always offer more money, and everyone has a price. There's gonna be a smaller country with a small GDP. There's gonna be like, maybe an extra 10 billion a year is not going to be so bad for the sake of, taking in a bit more trash, So my question is that in light of this, how do you guarantee the execution? Like the UN, for example, because I know the INC is a UN initiative, right?
Yeah.
And the UN has been trying to get a ceasefire in Gaza for a year. Hasn't happened, because of things like vetoes and all that, which will also apply when it comes to it, when it comes to signing the treaty, So how do you sort of maneuver that in a way?
So this ultimately, affect us people. So definitely we have to tap into the people voices, people power. So collectively we could, demand a change.
Right.
We can demand our government, hey, this pollution is too out of control. We cannot cope with it anymore. So down the line, if you let this to continue happen, it's gonna overpollute our home.
Yeah.
Right. It has been proven microplastics has been found in human body. And the health impacts that comes from it. It's a social issue.
Yeah.
Because down the road, you need better healthcare. Will your healthcare be able to cope with such influx of, cases, illness coming in and all that? And also, like, if you have, like, waste incineration near a community, people would, slowly move out.
Especially if it's
of that
plastic
places.
waste incineration, right?
Yes. Yeah. So definitely the people power. So in Greenpeace, we also try, to give, we highlight all these vulnerable communities and all that. So when we talk about plastics, we are all affected. So
For
if
sure.
we don't look at this issue seriously now, who's going to look at it down the road? So definitely demand that change now, because now is a really prime time for us to do so with the last negotiation happening.
Right.
Right? So whether it's going to be a strong, ambitious treaty or not, it still goes back to how Malaysia is going to implement all those change and all those policy locally. So for a treaty to be effective in Malaysia, for starters, they have to ratify it in Malaysia. And it also, we have to see whether, the parliament are going to impose it into national law and made it, enforceable all across Malaysia. So when we talk about the waste management issue, we have a federal government and we have the state government. So waste management is often at the authority of the state government, because they have the power, to outsource third-party contractors to manage our waste and all that. For example, we have KL and Selangor, mainly waste management goes to SW Corp. Right. So we have all these different states doing different things. If we have just one, consistent standard and goal that we want to roll out, and everybody just comply with that, for example, we made it at scale. So it's like the whole nation is doing it, not just that particular state.
Okay, let's bring it back a bit, because that was very broad just now. But okay. You mentioned something like how recycling is not the final solution, right? So what are some of other common misconceptions about plastic pollutions that you might have encountered?
So it goes back, to the materials that make plastics. I have, gone to a few public engagement activities, and when I asked the public, hey, do you know what plastic is made up of? Some of them would answer rubber. Yeah, they have no idea it's made up of fossil fuels. Right. And on top of that, we have that 13,000 type of chemicals, right? So when I tell them, hey, we have so many things that goes into making our plastic products, and unfortunately, a majority of these chemicals are unregulated. So can you think about all the toxicity that is going into your body? So they were like, shocked. Didn't know about that, right? So, and then I asked them, so what do you think is a possible solution? Because, our government has been talking about post-consumer site solution like recycling. So they say, hey, I do recycling at home. But then when I ask them, do you know what is the recycling rate? Or you can have a guess, what's the recycling rate over the world?
Like in terms of how many people recycle?
In terms of, like plastics getting recycled.
Oh, plastic getting recycled.
Yeah, the
Probably very
percentage.
low. Very low. Less than 10%.
Probably less than 10%, yeah.
Yeah, it's 9%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's only 9% of all the plastics we ever produce all over the world gets
They actually get
properly
recycled.
recycled.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and when you are recycling your plastics that's made out of all these harmful chemicals, you're just recycling all these toxic chemicals.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
All right. We have a few more. We only have time for a few more questions. BJ, you got a question?
Yeah. So my question about the Global Plastics Treaty, right? So one major question I have is, how is the funding going to be managed? Because obviously, moving towards a greener way of doing things is going to be expensive, because you have to essentially slowly replace the current sources and methods that you have with new sources and methods, right? Because you're not going to use plastic anymore. So how that's going to be expensive, like for anyone, like a business, a country to do. So where does the funding come from, and who's going to foot the bill for that?
Okay. So, for these big producer manufacturing plastics, definitely they are making a profit every year.
Yeah.
So it could start with them. Allocate some funds to do proper R&D for alternative solutions. We want real solutions, not false solutions that you are putting out to the market just to deceive people that your products are green.
Right.
Right? Besides than that, we have the polluters pay principles. So it could be, like a pollution tax that we could collect from all these major polluters that in the end goes to the government to do proper waste management, proper pickup, proper separation of our waste and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely it still goes back to funding on how much money we can get to, do all these things at scale.
Yeah.
So definitely in our government, the ministry will definitely have to properly, chart out their budget every year, to allocate some funds to look into our waste management system, to, really look at the recycling facilities. Our facilities, are the technology there, you know,
Right.
because we do get some licensed recycling facilities saying that they could recycle some of this plastics product, but a lot of people still don't know there are different types of plastics, 7 types essentially. So the commonly recycled ones in Malaysia, number 1, number 2, and number 5.
Okay.
Yeah, at the precondition that, the recycling facilities has the proper machineries.
To do it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think we'll get into one of our last questions. What advice would you give to someone looking to get involved in environmental activism? Maybe focusing on plastic reduction. What advice would you give to them?
Okay, so you don't need all these fancy degree or masters, to get into such advocacy. Small people like us, like nobody like us, could start adopting a change, lifestyle change. Adopt the zero waste lifestyle, bring your reusable and recyclable items, right? Just start from yourself. When people see that you are doing it, they will be like curious, hey, how are you doing it? Start the conversation, right? Talk to people about the plastic pollution and tell them how the dangers of the chemicals that goes in it. So, and most importantly, really, you have to read up quite a bit, know your facts. So when you talk to people, people could be convinced, right?
Yep.
Right? Because I didn't come from environmental background. I'm just enthusiastic.
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah,
really
yeah.
passionate about the environment and all that. So you read up a little bit more, right? Talk to different people that does all these things, and slowly you can see like, wow, they would kind of like inspire you to become, part of the advocacy,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
To, really fight for our future, really.
Yeah.
We're not just doing this for us, but for the future generation as well,
Yeah.
right? So just start at home,
Yep.
right? Say no to the single-use plastics for starters, right? Yeah.
All right. Jay, you got any more questions?
No, no more questions. But yeah, like it's interesting. Like I'm not really exposed to this side of
Yeah.
the plastics debate.
Yeah, it's good
You
that
know?
we learn about this lah.
Yeah,
especially.
yeah. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna tell my grandma stop using the single-use plastics, man.
Grandma,
like
you-
she makes curry, she makes all her delicious food. Like, but then she keeps it in that, you know. Like,
So she's like the lead
I don't mind.
contributor.
I never cared before. But you know, microplastics in your body, dude. That's scary, dude.
I mean, it's a world that our kids, your daughters are going to live in, man. Yeah, so we got to take care of the world juga lah.
Well, who knows? Maybe by that time we'll be on Mars by then.
Okay, one last question, okay? How can individuals make a meaningful impact in their daily lives to combat plastic pollution? Like you
Yeah.
mentioned before, like, okay, we talk to people, like, get into a community and, you know, educate them. But other than that, like, what else can a normal person do?
So definitely small lifestyle changes if you can make that change, right? Because all of these single-use plastics, pakai sekali kita buang kan.
Yeah.
So we call it sekali pakai plastics juga lah. So you just use for that one time you throw, it's gonna persist in the earth for centuries. Then after it breaks down, become microplastics, right? A lot of people don't know that, sadly. So definitely, maybe read up a bit more on like Greenpeace published report. You would probably learn a thing or two in there, right?
Yeah.
This one,
Yeah. Yes. So when you have the facts, you would start to make small lifestyle changes within yourself for starters, right?
Yeah.
Bring your own reusable cups to tapau. Because ikat tepi, oh, plastic.
Single use plastics.
you know who's big into this now? Like this whole like health team
Single-use plastics.
against microplastics.
Who?
Donald Trump. I'm not kidding, dude. He's new, one of his new taglines for this campaign is "Make America Healthy Again." I'm not kidding, dude. I'm really, honestly not kidding.
No,
You can Google
I'm
it.
not surprised because his hair looks plastic.
Yeah, but it's not. It's been proven. Come on, like no, but in all honesty, like yeah, like this whole thing, like I guess yeah, obviously, no one's gonna say like yeah, we should use more plastic. You know, this is my take on it. Okay, my opinion on it. Like no one's gonna say no, we need to use more plastics. But plastics, especially single-use containers, have always been there as a form of convenience.
Yes,
Yeah.
You know,
correct.
And it's cheap to
it's
create.
that's the hardest thing to replace.
Yeah.
The convenience of single-use
Yes.
plastics. That is, I feel, that is the thing that you have to combat. But it's so hard to combat it.
Yeah.
You know, like how do you make glass Tupperwares? You know, like you do, like those Pyrex bowls. Like you have those, but those lids are still plastic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know? And it's expensive too.
Yeah.
Like it's super expensive. Right? The whole set can cost like hundreds, sometimes even
definitely.
thousands.
Yeah.
You know? So it's hard to beat. And of course, another big, especially in Malaysia, a big roadblock, if you want to call it that, is GrabFood.
Yes.
GrabFood is a huge roadblock for this because every single time you order GrabFood, you can't say, "Oh, I don't want plastic."
Yeah.
Like
They
send
will
me
give you
in a glass bowl, no, or it's always gonna be styrofoam or plastic, you know.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think those are the two biggest things that the plastic movement has to deal with. Convenience, though. Convenience is it's hard to get over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people are comfortable, with what they have.
Yeah, yeah. Like even with the whole microplastics thing, like especially the older generation, they're like, I don't see that. I'm 70. 10 more years of plastic. So what? I'm gonna die anyways.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
But that's the wrong mentality to have, lah.
Right or wrong, whatever. But it's
Yeah.
it's part of a human of a society. You're gonna have people like that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's like more often than not, you get more of them than more of the people like yourself. You know.
Sorry about that. My friend is a big Trump fan.
No, I'm not. There's nothing to do about that. It's like I'm just saying, like those from what I see, my opinion, those seem to be the two biggest roadblocks
Yes.
to the plastic.
You're right,
movement.
you're right.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing remarks that you wanna say at least before INC-5 or the Global Plastic Treaty that you think people should know about?
Yeah, so
Look in the
actually, Okay, so Greenpeace produces a lot of informative report that's free for the public. You can follow us on social media, Greenpeace Malaysia. So we post some educational content from time to time. And because INC-5 is closing up on us, it's coming soon. So hopefully we get like a lot of people supporting our petition. We have a 10K petition. It mainly focuses on asking the government to look at upstream solutions. Right? So why 10K? So when we get the 10K, we could bring this up to the parliament.
Okay.
And have them.
10K signatures.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You need a minimum of 10K to bring it up to parliament?
At least, then they will lie on you lah.
Yeah.
Right?
Alright.
So we need as many people to sign the petition as because then we have that collective voice. Right? So then we can bring this up to the parliament and have them look into these pollution issues at Malaysia as well. Because if we don't know what's going to happen at INC-5, whether it's going to continue, it's going to stop there, whether it's going to be an ambitious treaty or not, whether what happens at the top locally in Malaysia, things have to change already.
Okay.
Yeah, so do support Greenpeace in our cause.
All right. Thank you so much, Yan. I think
Yeah.
that's it for today's episode. I hope you learned a lot from our episode this week. And as usual, follow us next week. Reuse and recycle, guys. Try to practice what you
Refill.
Yeah.
Reuse and refill.
Reuse and refill. Sorry.
Yes.
Wake up.
Sorry.
Refill.
Reuse and refill. Okay.
Alright.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you guys in the next episode. Ciao.
Ciao.
Let's go.